The waiter asked if I wanted to keep holding her purse or set it on the chair. I told him it was fine. I lied. It wasn't fine. Nothing about the scene in front of me was even remotely fine. The live band played some overdone cover of just the two of us, and my wife, yes, my wife, was dancing like she had just met the love of her life. Problem was, it wasn't me. I was 20 feet away, next to the dessert station, holding a beige leather clutch and pretending to read the drink menu like it was a novel. She was twirling. She was laughing. She was flirting, the kind of flirt that has memory in it. Like this wasn't their first time dancing. Like this wasn't the first time he'd touched her lower back and she didn't flinch. Like there was already a rhythm between them, one I didn't recognize, one I'd never been invited into. That's when I realized she'd planned this. All of it. The dress that dipped low in the back, the one she said was for me, but somehow matched his tie. The sudden insistence that I come to her company's charity gala, even though I hate charity events, and she knows it. The subtle way she kept me near the food and far from the crowd. Like a coat check. Like a witness. Or worse, a ghost. They spun again. Her hair whipped around like in those shampoo commercials. She leaned in to whisper something in his ear. He smiled like he'd won. And then, she looked right through me. Not past me. Through me. That was the moment. That was when I knew. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was just the guy who drove her here. I was the emotional Uber driver. So I set the purse gently on the table. Took one last look at the woman I'd been married to for 8 years. And I walked out. No drama. No scene. No final stare down. Just the quietest goodbye she never heard. But here's the twist. She came running, seconds later. And what she said in that parking lot changed everything. The cold hit me first. Not the temperature, but that kind of cold that settles under your skin. The kind that crawls into your chest and starts unpacking like it plans to stay a while. I stood there next to our car, arms crossed, blinking at nothing. I didn't even unlock it. I didn't want to sit down. I didn't want to cry. I didn't want to move until I figured out whether what just happened was real. That's when I heard the clack of her heels. She was rushing. I could hear it in the rhythm. Not elegant steps. Not playful skipping. This was panic. Regret. Or maybe just guilt wearing high heels. Maurice, she called out, and I flinched, not because of the name, but because of the way she said it. Like she was the one who'd been hurt. I turned around slowly, the way people do in movies when they've had enough. But in real life, it's not dramatic. It's clumsy. My jaw was tight, but my mouth was dry. I didn't know whether I wanted to scream or apologize for existing. She looked wild, her lipstick slightly smudged, eyes wide, dress straps slipping off her shoulder. For a moment, she looked like someone who'd just lost something. Or maybe like someone who realized they were being watched the whole time. You seriously walked out? She asked, breathless, eyes scanning me like I was some unpredictable animal. Yep, I said. It was all I could muster. A one-syllable avalanche holding back 1,000 questions. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Are you really doing this here? At my work event? There it was. Her work event. Not our night. Not our relationship. Not our problem. I couldn't help it. I let out a bitter laugh. Not the kind you hear in sitcoms. The kind that sounds like it hurts to come out. I held your purse, I said. Like an idiot. I held your purse while you slow danced with a man who probably still texts you memes from 2012. Her face changed. Like I'd struck something too close to the truth. Her arms folded, her eyes darted, and suddenly, she wasn't guilty. She was offended. It was just dancing, she hissed, stepping in again. We were catching up. You've become so paranoid lately. It's exhausting. There it was again. My crime wasn't being disrespected. It was being inconvenient. But then, her phone buzzed. She looked down at it, instinctively. That moment, that one stupid moment, changed everything. Because her screen lit up just enough for me to see it. One name. Called her. And right under it, a message preview. Tell me when he leaves. I didn't say a word. I just looked at her. She saw my eyes. She knew. Instantly, the blood drained from her face. And for the first time all night, she looked afraid. Not angry. Not annoyed. Afraid. Maurice, it's not what you think. I held up my hand. It was shaking. I think, I said slowly, that I need to go now. Before I say something I can't take back. She didn't stop me this time. Not with her voice. Not with her body. Not with the truth. She just stood there, shivering in that $1,000 dress, as I finally opened the door, sat inside, and locked it behind me. As I drove off, the tears didn't come. Not yet. I was too numb. But what did come, less than an hour later, was a string of texts so desperate, so frantic, I almost thought someone died. But nope, no one died. At least not yet. But the next 24 hours? They buried everything I thought I knew about my wife. I didn't go home. I couldn't. Home suddenly felt like a crime scene where nothing had technically happened, but something violent had absolutely taken place. So I drove, nowhere in particular, around the blocks, down into the industrial district, through dead, quiet neighborhoods where porch lights blinked like dying stars. My phone kept buzzing in the passenger seat, vibrating hard against the leather like it was trying to crawl away. I didn't look at it for a while. Just let it ring, buzz, ding, again and again. When I finally pulled into an empty parking lot behind a 24-hour donut shop, I picked it up and looked. 13 unread messages. 4 missed calls. 2 voicemails. All from Darla. I didn't open any of them. Not yet. Because honestly, I was scared. Scared of what I'd read. Scared of how it might sound, whether it was an apology, an explanation, or something worse. I was afraid of hearing her lie, or worse, hearing her tell the truth. But curiosity eats you alive when you're not ready to face it. So I did what every emotionally constipated man does. I picked the most emotionally distant method possible. I opened the voicemail transcripts. The first one was short. Hey, please don't do this. You're blowing this way out of proportion. I need you to come back so we can talk like adults. The second one came 20 minutes later. I don't know why you're acting like this. It was just a dance. Calder was just being friendly. Are you really going to throw our marriage away over some stupid misunderstanding? There it was again, the shifting of blame. I was the one ruining things. I was the unreasonable one. Not her. Not the one who twirled around the dance floor like her husband wasn't 10 feet away holding her purse and dignity in the same damn hand. I finally opened the texts. One of them hit different. I never meant for you to see that message. Not, it wasn't what it looked like. Not, there's nothing going on. Just, I never meant for you to see it. That's not innocence. That's exposure. It was the digital equivalent of a hot knife down my spine. Not because it confirmed the obvious, but because it confirmed she was still hiding something. The thing is, I still wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. I didn't know what I'd say. I didn't want to scream. I didn't want to cry. I didn't want to beg. I just wanted her to feel 1 ounce of the hollowness that had opened up in my chest. So I did something petty. I turned off my phone, and I went to my brother's place. He wasn't home. He and his girlfriend were in Tahoe for the weekend. But he gave me a spare key last year when I helped him patch up a water leak. I let myself in, dropped onto his couch like a sandbag, and stared at the ceiling in the dark. That's when the real thoughts came. The unfiltered, ugly ones. Had she cheated already? Was tonight just the first time she slipped? Or was it the first time she got caught? Did Calder even know I existed before tonight? Did she speak about me with pity? With contempt? With nothing at all? I didn't sleep. I just waited for morning like it might bring clarity. It didn't. It brought sunlight, which only made things feel more real, more exposed. When I turned my phone back on the next day, I expected more messages. Desperation. Maybe even a soft, fearful apology. Instead, I got this. If you're going to act like a child, don't bother coming back until you've grown up. It was like someone lit my ribs on fire. She'd flipped the script completely. Gaslight me into the villain of her story. She was done begging. Now she was drawing the line. What she didn't know was that by the time I got that message, I'd already made a decision. I was going to find out the truth. Not from her, not through assumptions, and not by snooping. I was going to go directly to the source. I was going to confront Calder. I didn't even know if it was legal to look up someone's number using a spouse's work calendar, but at that point, I didn't care. My hands were shaking, my throat dry, and my conscience had already packed a bag and walked out sometime around 3 a.m. I logged into Darla's shared calendar from the home desktop, something I hadn't touched in months. One of her recent events, strategy sync with Calder J. 10 minutes of creeping through her team's Slack directory and internal tools, and I had it. His full name, his company email, his contact card. It felt too easy. I sat with it for almost an hour before doing anything. I stared at his number, reread the texts Darla sent me, reread the one that haunted me the most. I never meant for you to see that message. I told myself I'd just ask a question. Just one. Something simple. Something calm. I'd be civil. Controlled. Rational. I wouldn't accuse. I wouldn't scream. At 10:43 a.m., I pressed call. It rang twice. Then he picked up. Hello. His voice was casual, like I'd just interrupted him mid-latte. I almost froze. But then something in me lit up, something quiet and focused. Is this Calder? Yeah? Who's this? I swallowed hard. My name's Maurice, I said, then added, Darla's husband. There was a pause. Not long, but long enough for me to hear the shift. The vocal equivalent of someone tightening their posture. Oh, wow, he said. Okay. Wasn't expecting that. Neither was I said. But here we are. Another pause. Then he sighed, like I'd just asked him to assemble IKEA furniture. Look, man, if this is about last night. It is, I interrupted, sharper than I meant. It's exactly about last night. More silence. He lowered his voice like he didn't want someone in the room to hear. Okay, listen, I'm not trying to cause problems. She said things were complicated between you two. That's all I knew. I didn't come there trying to start drama. We danced. That's it. I stared at the floor. She told you we were having problems? He hesitated again, which told me everything I needed before he even spoke. Not exactly, but it wasn't like she said everything was perfect either. There was a crack in my chest, just big enough to let the nausea leak in. Did you two ever? I stopped myself. Rewound. Has anything physical ever happened between you? He didn't answer immediately. He did that thing people do when they're deciding how honest they want to be, knowing that honesty is going to ruin someone's day. Look, man, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, okay? But if you're calling me looking for closure or clean lines, I don't think I'm your guy. That was all he said, but it said everything. I let the silence hang for a beat. He didn't fill it, right? I finally muttered, voice gone flat. Well, thanks for your time. I hung up before he could reply. My whole body felt numb. Not in a cinematic way, not in a man finding out the truth and raging into a mirror kind of way. I just went still. Like a TV turned off in the middle of a scene. Like every part of me didn't know what to do next, so it chose nothing. I sat there on the couch in my brother's living room, staring into the echo of a life I didn't know was fake. I thought about the last birthday gift I gave her. I thought about the vacation we had planned for October. I thought about how she'd kissed me goodbye that morning before the gala. Not with passion, but with routine. Like a chore she still remembered how to do. Then I thought about the look on her face when I saw that message. I never meant for you to see it. Not regret for what she'd done. Just regret that I'd seen it. I stood up. Paced. Sat down again. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I opened my phone, went to the photo album, and deleted every picture we'd taken in the last year. Not out of anger. Not out of spite. But because suddenly, none of it looked real anymore. I wasn't sure what the next step would be, whether I'd confront her, leave, or just fall apart somewhere quiet. But I knew one thing for sure. She'd made her choices. Now it was my turn. I didn't return home until after midnight the following day. I parked 3 houses down because I didn't want her to hear the engine, or even know I was back. Not yet. I wanted to enter like a stranger, not a husband returning, but a man inspecting the ashes of something that used to be sacred. The house was dark. Lights off. Curtains drawn. Not even the porch light was on, and Darla always left it on when she was mad at me, like some passive-aggressive beacon of punishment. But this time, nothing. I unlocked the door and stepped inside quietly. No perfume, no music, no TV murmuring in the background. Just dead silence and the faint ticking of the kitchen clock, the one I'd fixed last year when she said it made the room feel alive. Well, the room didn't feel alive anymore. I expected yelling, or crying, or maybe her waiting for me on the couch with some half-hearted apology preloaded into her throat. But the living room was empty. Shoes gone. Jacket rack untouched. Something felt wrong. I stepped into the kitchen, and that's when I saw it. On the table, sitting neatly in the center like it had been placed for effect, was a manila envelope. No name, no note. Just sealed, perfectly, with a small circle of wax pressed flat in the middle like we were in some kind of royal court drama. My stomach dropped. My mind went into overdrive. Was it divorce papers? A confession? A restraining order? My name scratched into a hit list? I sat down and stared at it for a long minute before finally peeling it open. Inside were 3 things. First, a folded piece of notebook paper, torn at the edge like it had been ripped in a rush. Second, a printed email, highlighted. Third, a photo. I unfolded the note first. It was handwritten, in Darla's curly script that I once thought looked like poetry. Not anymore. You're going to hate me for this. And I probably deserve it. But you deserve the full truth. I don't have the guts to tell you in person. Maybe that makes me a coward. Maybe I've always been one. I already hated where this was going. I moved to the email. It was printed from her inbox. The subject line? HR review, urgent follow-up needed. It was dated 4 weeks ago. Apparently, someone from her company's HR department had flagged her for undisclosed relationships within a leadership hierarchy. Someone had filed an anonymous complaint. There were implications of favoritism, after-hours meetings, and unreported travel. The email was cold, formal, procedural, but the meaning was clear. This wasn't just about Calder. It was more than Calder. She was under investigation at work for having another relationship, not just a flirtation, with someone above her, and she had tried to bury it. The email even hinted at potential suspension pending further interviews. My mouth went dry. My vision actually blurred. I pulled out the third item. The photo. It wasn't Calder. It was Darla, in a hotel bar, sitting beside a man I didn't recognize. Older, wearing a navy blazer, hand on her thigh under the table. She was laughing. The same laugh she used to give me when I made stupid puns during dinner. On the back, in ballpoint pen, was scribbled, "This is who she really saved the green dress for." My pulse thudded in my ears. For a moment, I felt like I was floating outside my body. Everything I thought I'd understood, the betrayal, the dance, the text, it wasn't even the full picture. Calder was just the tip of the rod. He was a distraction. The green dress wasn't for him. It wasn't for me. It was for this guy, and I didn't even know his name. I sat there for what felt like hours, my hands gripping the envelope, my chest rising and falling like I'd just run a marathon in a thunderstorm. When I finally stood, I didn't feel anger. I felt clarity. I wasn't the fool anymore. I wasn't confused. I wasn't holding her purse like a background prop in her story. I knew what I had to do now, and it wasn't forgiveness. The truth sits heavy, not in your head, but in your gut, like you swallowed wet cement, and now every step feels like dragging your own grave behind you. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even pretend to. I just sat in the hallway with the envelope still open beside me like it might grow new pages, darker revelations, maybe a final note that explained why. But nothing came. By morning, I had made a decision. I wasn't going to talk to Darla. Not yet. Not while the anger was still raw and alive and sharpening itself like a blade. I needed to think, to plan, to make sure whatever happened next didn't turn into a shouting match or some pathetic display of heartbreak she could use against me. But at 9:12 a.m., someone knocked on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. My phone was still off. My brother was still out of town. I hadn't even looked at another person in nearly 36 hours. I opened the door slowly, and there she was, Melanie, Darla's younger sister, the last person I expected, or wanted, to see. She wasn't alone. Behind her, holding a paper coffee tray and looking like she had aged 10 years overnight, was Darla. I froze. Melanie stepped forward, putting herself between us like a human buffer. "She just wants to talk," she said, handing me one of the coffees without waiting for permission. "But she's not going inside unless you say so." I looked at Darla. She looked like hell. Sweatshirt, no makeup, puffy eyes. Her hair was tied in a messy knot that looked like it had been pulled tighter in frustration than style. "Please," she said, voice cracking. "Just 5 minutes." I didn't answer. I stepped aside, not because I forgave her, but because I wanted to hear what kind of story she was going to tell, now that I had all the pieces. We sat in silence for a while. Melanie stayed by the window, arms crossed, watching her sister like she didn't trust her either. Darla sat across from me at the dining table, right where she'd left that envelope the night before. "I know you saw the email," she said finally. I didn't nod. I didn't flinch. "I didn't sleep with him," she added quickly, like she'd practiced it 100 times in her head. "It never got that far." I tilted my head. "That far," I repeated. "So there was a distance you were trying to reach?" She looked down. Melanie stepped in. "Darla, just say it." Darla wiped her face. "He was my manager. One level up. We got close. He flirted. I flirted back. It felt safe. I didn't think it would turn into anything. But then Calder came into the picture, and things got messy. I started lying, juggling things, and I got caught. HR found out about the hotel bar. I didn't report it. That was a violation. They're probably going to terminate me." She looked at me now, eyes watering. But the worst part wasn't losing my job. It was watching you walk out of that room. That look on your face. She didn't finish. Instead, Melanie spoke. She told me everything this morning. She said she hated the way you looked at her like she was a stranger. Like you'd already deleted her from your life. I did, I said. Melanie blinked. Well, she's still here. I looked back at Darla. Why? Why tell me now? Why not before? Because I didn't want to lose everything, she whispered. I thought if I controlled the damage, I could fix it before it got too far. I didn't realize I'd already crossed the line. Silence again. That's when Melanie dropped the real bombshell. She didn't put that envelope on the table. I turned to her. What? Melanie shook her head. That's why I came over. Darla called me this morning after finding out her manager had forwarded the complaint to legal. She wanted to come clean to you. She was going to sit you down. But when we got here this morning, the door was unlocked. And that envelope was already waiting. My skin prickled. What do you mean it was already here? Melanie stepped closer. I mean someone else put it there. My heart began to pound. Darla looked genuinely shaken now. You didn't leave it on the table last night? I didn't even know about it until I opened it, I said. No one spoke for a long time. Whoever had access to that email, the photo, and knew enough about Darla's movements to print, seal, and deliver it, had been inside our house. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was surveillance. And I had a sickening feeling. It wasn't over. Melanie's words echoed in the room like a dropped glass. Sharp, confusing, impossible to ignore. Someone else put the envelope on the table. Someone who had access to Darla's email. Someone who had access to our house. I stood there, not moving, just trying to breathe in a room that suddenly felt tighter with every passing second. My mind spun wildly, digging through every conversation, every encounter, every moment over the last few months. Had I missed something? A sign? A person watching from the background? I don't understand, I finally said. You're saying someone broke in, planted that envelope, and just left? Melanie nodded. There were no signs of forced entry. Door was unlocked. Alarm was off. Darla swears she locked it when she left. I turned to Darla. Her face was pale now, like she had just been hit with the full weight of what that implied. But I wasn't buying the helpless act anymore, not completely. Because someone had keys. And someone had a motive. I walked out of the kitchen without saying another word and made my way to the guest bedroom. The one we barely used. The one Darla always insisted on keeping tidy just in case. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe a note. Maybe a phone. Maybe nothing. But something in me needed to look. It was there I noticed the outlet cover. Slightly crooked. Just off by a couple millimeters. Not enough for a guest to care. But I noticed. I always notice things like that. I reached for the screwdriver in the hallway drawer and unscrewed it slowly. Behind the cover, tucked neatly in the hollow of the wall, was a tiny black device with a blinking red light. A camera. A live one. I didn't say anything. I didn't scream. I didn't even tell Darla or Melanie. I just took it out of the wall, held it in my palm, and stared at it like it might explain itself. Who the hell was watching us? Was it Darla's secret lover trying to spy on her? Was it someone trying to get leverage on her at work? Was it someone trying to get leverage on me? When I finally returned to the kitchen, both women turned toward me like they felt the air shift. I dropped the camera on the table between us. Darla gasped. Melanie swore under her breath. What is that? Darla asked, but her voice was weak, fragile, like she already knew. You tell me, I said coldly. She reached for it, but I grabbed it first. It was in the guest room wall, facing the hallway. Not the bed, not the closet, the hallway. Melanie's eyes widened. That means that whoever put it there wasn't trying to catch someone having an affair, I said, my voice tightening. They were tracking movement, comings and goings. Someone was watching to see who left the bedroom. When? How often? That changed everything. Because it wasn't about jealousy anymore. It was about timing. Did you ever stay in that room? I asked Darla. She nodded slowly. A few nights, after arguments. Sometimes if I came home late and didn't want to wake you. And did anyone else stay there? A friend? A coworker? Calder? She looked away, lips trembling. Once, she said. Months ago. My boss. The one from the email. He came over after an office dinner when his Uber canceled. It was pouring. I told you I was working late that night, remember? I did. I remembered the excuse. I remembered the way she avoided my eyes the next day. I remembered the faint smell of cologne I didn't own on one of the towels. So someone wanted proof, Melanie whispered. But not of the cheating, of the opportunity, of how often it was happening. They wanted a pattern. That's when it clicked. This wasn't just about me. This was about leverage. Someone was building a case. A digital paper trail. Footage. Documentation. To take down Darla, and maybe whoever she was involved with, from the inside. And then a darker thought crept in. What if the person watching wasn't trying to expose her? What if they were threatening her? Darla looked up at me suddenly, tears now brimming, not from guilt, but from fear. There's something I didn't tell you. My jaw tightened. Of course there is. She swallowed hard. I got a text last week. From an unknown number. It said, "Tell him, or I will." I thought it was Calder. I deleted it. I thought it was a scare tactic. Why didn't you say anything? I asked, fury burning behind my eyes. Because I thought I could fix it, she said. I thought if I buried it, it would go away. I leaned back in my chair, the room spinning slowly around me. Someone had been watching. Someone had broken in. Someone had planted evidence. And now they were escalating. This wasn't about betrayal anymore. This was a game. And I had just started playing it too late. We didn't call the police. Not yet. Something about it didn't feel like a crime in the traditional sense. It was personal, intimate, designed to destabilize, not destroy. Someone had been watching us, yes. Someone had clearly broken boundaries. But this wasn't a burglary. It was a message, and I already knew who it was from. The same man Darla had tried to protect with half-truths and shaky alibis. Her former boss. I won't waste time naming him. That's what he wanted, to be named. To be significant. To be someone whose presence infected more lives than he'd earned the right to. He had power. Influence. Just enough to manipulate people into keeping secrets. And when Darla backed away, when she tried to end it, he got sloppy. Desperate. He started threatening her with exposure. Blackmail. The envelope, the camera, the anonymous text. All part of the same performance. A man trying to remind her that walking away would come with a cost. He never expected her to break. But she did. And he never expected me to stay calm. But I did. Melanie helped me organize everything. The printed emails, the HR thread, the photo, and most importantly, the footage pulled from the camera's memory card. We handed it all to Darla's legal counsel. And within days, the man was placed on administrative leave pending internal investigation. I don't know what happened after that. I didn't care. It wasn't my war anymore. I'd already made my decision. I wasn't going to stay. Not out of revenge. Not to punish Darla. But because the man I had been in this marriage, the one who held her purse while she spun in someone else's arms, was someone I never wanted to be again. The moment I saw the truth, I didn't feel hate. I felt freedom. I moved out the next week. Quietly. No fights. No theatrics. No final speeches. I packed my books, my records, and my one good pan. I left the house key on the counter with a single note. I forgive you. But I'm done choosing people who don't choose me back. I haven't spoken to Darla since. It's been 3 months now. I started therapy, not because of her, but because I realized how many things I'd let slide in my life just to keep the peace. I stopped apologizing for needing space. I stopped pretending my silence was strength. I started writing again. I joined a hiking group. I even bought a ridiculously ugly dog from a rescue shelter and named him Waffles, because why not? And last week, something strange happened. I walked into a bookstore, the kind that smells like old wood and new beginnings, and a woman at the counter smiled at me. Not a flirty smile. Not a forced one. Just human. Warm. Real. We ended up talking for almost 20 minutes about a dumb paperback I was holding. She made fun of my taste in fiction. I told her she was wrong. We laughed. I didn't ask for her number. Not yet. But I will. Soon. Because for the first time in a long time, I'm not haunted by what I lost. I'm excited by what I might find.